Tipp today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Good morning, welcome along to Tipp Today, 1800 938 007. That's our free phone number. Won't cost you to make a call, and Leanne is producing today. Coming up on the show this morning, the government is finally committed to expanding hospital capacity in the Midwest. We'll talk about that in just a few moments' time. Taoiseach Micheál Martin defended his leadership at a tense Fianna Fail parliamentary party meeting last night. We'll be speaking about that a little later on in the programme as well. We'll hear from the brother of Imelda Keenen, 3 decades on since her disappearance. We'll be hearing from my good friend Muiris Walsh, who'll have a look back at 2025 for us. Tipperary-based musician Ian Burke will be live in studio, and John G has another episode of The Story of Ireland. So all of that and much, much more on the way. You can text a WhatsApp 083 311 3311. You can email tiptoday@tippfm.com. And as ever, we're delighted to hear from you, however you might choose to make contact with us. Now, let's have a look at the newspapers. It being Wednesday, the local papers are on your shelves. The Tipperary Star leading with a wonderful photograph indeed of Johnny Smacks, of the two Johnnies, a picture of himself and his little baby, and the story is in there. The podcaster opens up on his fertility struggles since his son JJ's health battles emerged since his birth. The Guardian, and the lead story on The Guardian today, submissions on the controversial plan to pump Shannon water to the Eastern and Midlands region can now be readied as Uisce Éireann lodges its long-awaited planning application this week. The Nationalist, the stark headline there is Heartbreak, and tributes paid to the 2 young men killed in the horrific crash just a few days ago, and of course 2 women taken to hospital, 6 more treated at the scene near Cllr, and also a 3rd man killed in a separate crash in Clonmel after a dark weekend on the Premier County's roads. To the national newspapers then, and the front pages, Irish Daily Mail, the lead story there, and right across the newspapers today, coverage of that Fianna Fail meeting last night. The Mail telling us that Fianna Fail were warned on 3 occasions about issues between their ill-fated presidential candidate Jim Gavin and his former tenant. To the Irish Examiner, a picture of a very serious-looking Micheál Martin from a press conference yesterday, dominating the front page there, and they're telling us that Micheál Martin's leadership of Fianna Fail has emerged wounded but intact after an internal party review into Jim Gavin's disastrous presidential campaign largely put the blame at the candidates' feet. Also on the Examiner today, and again we'll be discussing it in just a few moments' time, it planned to ultimately build 2 new hospitals, including one with an emergency department for the Midwest, as well as expanding University Hospital Limerick, has been broadly welcomed. And finally, a look at the Independent, and a really stark headline, the Fianna Fail blame game is the headline there. Fianna Fail repeatedly asked Jim Gavin about a dispute with a tenant, but took no further action when he denied any knowledge of a row. And Taoiseach Micheál Martin is on the defensive after reporting into his party squandering of €400,000 on a dud presidential campaign. Let's look at what's making headlines in your newspapers today. Oh, let me have a quick look at the Irish Times as well, and their lead story, Martin faces renewed criticism over Gavin fiasco, and also a very worrying piece indeed on the front of the Times today. Residents in a South Dublin mental health hospital were left soiled for an unacceptable period, slapped on the leg, cursed at and threatened with an injection to improve cooperation with staff, an investigation has found. And they're referring there to Bloomfield Hospital in Rathfarnham. And that is really so awful and unfortunate. And of course, we've heard too many stories like that over the years. If you want to make comment on any of that, text WhatsApp 083 311 3311. And now the government is finally committed to expanding hospital capacity in the Midwest. As you know, HIQA recommended 3 options: expanding capacity at University Hospital Limerick, adding a second site in close proximity to the George Oil campus, and building a new hospital, a Model 4 hospital with a second emergency department. Health Minister Jennifer Carroll McNeill said she was progressing the 3 measures to expand hospital capacity in the region. Dr. Conor Reidy of Nina Needs Its A&E and the Midwest Hospital Campaign joins me now. Conor, good morning to you.
Hello, Fran. How are you today?
I'm well, Conor. Does this make you feel better? Is this a step forward, Conor? Are you optimistic?
Well, of course. There's no doubt that what was announced yesterday is very welcome across the board. It should never have come to this. Had the government in power back in the day listened to the thousands of people who marched the streets of Nina and elsewhere regarding reconfiguration, against reconfiguration, had the government of the day listened to those people marching through Nina and Limerick and Ennis and elsewhere, this would never have come to this. We would never have had the botched reconfiguration, and thousands and thousands of people and families wouldn't have been put to what they've been put through over the past 15 or 16 years. So we very much welcome what was announced yesterday. I don't think that any of us expected in the campaign that they were going to go for option C as well. Just to explain to people listening, the HIQA put forward 3 options for government to choose regarding repairing healthcare in the Midwest, emergency healthcare especially. And option A is additional capacity at UHL. Option B is some sort of hospital campus adjacent to UHL, and option C is a new Model 3 hospital for the region. Now, we didn't think they were going to go for a new Model 3 hospital, so that is, of course, welcome. A Model C, the option C, a Model 3 hospital for the region is, of course, the longer-term option. We accept that. And what we would be saying to particularly the government and supporting politicians right across the Midwest who yesterday rushed to associate themselves with this decision is that, you know, their work in a sense really starts now. We on the campaign and other campaigns and other people associated with our campaigns, we've done a lot of work to get us to yesterday's announcement for 6 years. But in a sense, to the politicians, your job starts now, because with this new hospital build that will take quite a while to happen, it's inevitable that, as is the tradition for all Irish governments, the government will tie themselves up in knots for years over this, making it happen, whether it's on planning, whether it's on agreeing a location, and all of the other pitfalls that come with it. So we use the comparison of the Children's Hospital, and the big thing we're looking at, everyone talks about with the Children's Hospital right now is the cost overruns. But there's another kind of scandal in my mind about the Children's Hospital that people don't talk about, which is that the concept of a Children's Hospital has been talked about since Bertie Ahern was Taoiseach.
Yeah.
It's been going on, and we've had 4 or 5 people occupy his office in the meantime.
And is that your fear? Is that your fear about option C on this, a new standalone hospital? Is that your fear that it'll be kicked down the road? I mean, the minister describes it as a medium-term solution.
Yeah, it is the fear, but I think it was also HIQA's fear, because when HIQA put the option C into the report, they did kind of put those provisos in that, look, this is almost, this is not their word, but it's almost a risky option.
Well, they almost wrote off their own option C, did they not?
They did.
Yeah.
They did, Fran, because and you can see why. Because of the tradition we have in this country with, on the immediate front with hospital building, but sometimes with large infrastructure projects that we need to make happen and that are urgently needed, yet making them happen does not seem to be in any way an easy ask. you look at the proposed metro project in Dublin. There are all kinds of things we can point to here. So we really need the system. The government said they are bringing in, I don't think it's passed yet, I'm not sure, this legislation about making emergency, turning certain infrastructure projects into emergency bills, and
yes, to get past planning issues and the
all those
like.
kind of things. Yeah. So we really need some of that thinking and logic applied to this. It is the Midwest Hospital campaign, Fran, was founded in a building called the Mechanics Institute in Limerick in the autumn-winter of 2019. And as we said yesterday privately to each other, it's a long road from the Mechanics Institute to what we got yesterday. So yes, we feel a huge sense of accomplishment, a huge sense of achievement. Not for us, but for all who have suffered and died, and the people who motivated us to do this. There are many names, but I'm not going to go into them. They're in the public domain, but I'll only forget one, so I won't mention them. But there are many, many people who suffered and died in those trolleys. And we are the families. That's who the Midwest Hospital campaign
do you think there should have been reference to that when the minister was speaking? Do you think? Of
course there should. Yeah. Of course there should. Because, the immense, and people know it. People have phoned in to you over the years, and there's people whose names we'll never know and whose stories we'll never know. People have suffered in their hundreds and their thousands in that place because of that decision. And while that suffering is not of this minister's making, I think it certainly is incumbent upon.
We're very short.
That to be acknowledged.
Sorry for cutting across you, Conor. We're very short on detail, though, because she said things like consideration will also be required for what services can be relocated and decanted. I love the word decanted to Ennis, St. John's, and to Nina as well. And of course, Alan Kelly pointing out the obvious. That what about the funding? What's the story with the funding?
Funding is the big question mark over all of it, as it always is. What budget is it going to come from? Bernard Gloucester attempted to address that question on the 6-1 yesterday evening. And the lack of detail is the big red flag over all of this, especially, I think, with option B, which is this idea of a new hospital campus somehow adjacent to UHL. What does adjacent mean? Does it mean the city in Limerick, or does it mean, as far as...
Well, my understanding, Conor, is there's some industrial lands not too far from the Duradoyle campus there that could be...
Yes, there's potential for that. And again, they could have to overcome the objection process, and they could have to overcome the inevitable obstacles. So I hope this new legislation that they're bringing in alongside all of this is going to deal with that. Because there is a greater good here now. But with this hospital campus, you're dead right. We are very, very low on detail. It is a vague concept at the moment. So I'm planning for it in a sense of what it has not happened yet. But we do await to see that and hope that it's going a long way to addressing.
Well, as you say, it's up to our public representatives now to fight for all of that kind of detail. Yeah. Conor, really good to talk to you today, and thank you for your time on this, and thank you and good morning to you. That's Dr. Conor Reidy speaking to us there. Let's go to Councillor Seamie Morris now. Seamie, good morning to you.
Good morning, Fran.
Good to talk to you today. What do you make about the announcement? It has to be good news, Seamie.
It is good news, Fran, to be fair. And I personally want to thank the Midwest Hospital campaign. They fought a long, very hard battle, sometimes a battle that was brought out of personal grief. And to be honest with you, they were ignored, ridiculed, laughed at by politicians in the Midwest. They were ignored for the most part. But they stayed the test of time. They kept campaigning for the in respect of the memory of Aoife Johnston and other Aoife Johnsons that died unnecessarily in UHL because of the poorly imagined reconfiguration of services into a system that wasn't ready for us.
And would you have liked if there was more of that referred to when the Minister was speaking about this? The mistakes that were made, and maybe holding hands up and saying, look, we got this wrong.
But I listened to the Minister yesterday and I heard her refer to the Trollygar figures, which are the figures that the HSE put out every morning about people on trolleys. And to be honest with you, Fran, it's an insult to the nursing to nurses who put out their own figures every day.
She said there had been a huge impact from the 96 beds.
Yeah, there hasn't been, Fran. The INTO or the nurses or the nurses union, INMO. We've had people on trolleys, over 100 people on trolleys up there several times since the 96 bed block opened. We didn't actually get 96 beds, Fran. I'm trying to get answers from the HSE as to what was moved in there, because obviously if you get 96 beds and there was 120 people on trolleys the week before, you'd imagine the trolley numbers would be down to 30 and 40, but they're not. They're up in 50s and 60s and 70s and up to over 100 several times. So that situation hasn't been resolved. But the other thing, Fran, is, look, to be honest with you, I do want to welcome this, because it's an acknowledgement that they got it wrong. It's an acknowledgement that reconfiguration was a disaster for the Midwest. It's an acknowledgement that the politicians have tried to ridicule those that pointed out that reconfiguration hasn't worked were right in the first place. So what I would say is that yesterday was at least an acknowledgement that things aren't working. Look, you could never fit a population of 425,000 into a plan that was built for a population of 350,000, and we kept pointing that out to them. But at long last, at least we have some sort of a plan. Now, look, I would be concerned about option 3, that it would ever happen, but at least option 1 and 2 seem to be something that we're going to get in the near future. And I mean, they're badly needed. But what I would always go back to, why could they not reopen Nina, St. John's and Ennis A&Es? What really pushed people into UHL was there was ambulances. If an ambulance is called to any sort of an incident in the Midwest, it has to take you into UHL. Now, some of those people, and I know myself, my own father, 96-year-old father, an ambulance driver begged him not to get into the ambulance because he knew my father wouldn't survive inside a trolley in UHL. So he kind of said to him, wait till the morning and, notified the family and all the rest, and we kept an eye on. He was fine. He's fine. Things like urinary tract infections, which aren't kind of life-threatening, but can cause a lot of confusion in elderly people. Sometimes you could wait it out the night. But when you have ambulance drivers asking people not to get into, you're sure you want to get into an ambulance, something is wrong. So, but what I'm saying is that at least now we've an acknowledgement that they got it so wrong over the last number of years.
Yeah, but some of the language is very vague, Seamie. When they speak about consideration will also be required for what services can be relocated or decanted to Ennis, St. John's and Nina to decongest the Dover-Doyle site. I mean, sure, we know that the ideal there is an A&E,
My own daughter is a trainee nurse at the moment, Fran. They have to leave. They have to get into UHL an hour before their shift to try and get parking spaces. I know cancer patients that can't get parking spaces in there. UHL is a mess in there at the moment, in parking and in trolleys. It's the site in itself is not capable of taking anymore. And I guess what they're talking about then, the second unit that they're talking about, or option 2, would be somewhere in the Raheen Industrial Estate. I would say there's upwards of 10,000 people working in Raheen Industrial Estate. I'd hate to be going in there in the between 8 and 9 in the morning and 4 and 5 in the evening.
Yeah, it's chaotic there already. It
is. I used to work in there many years ago. So one day I was going into UHL to an appointment, and I had a bit of time, so I drove in around Raheen Industrial Estate, and I was blown away at the expansion of it. And that's great news, but I wouldn't like to be putting a hospital into it. So there's a lot of congestion in that side of Limerick. Come here, as I said, it's an acknowledgement. I'm happy that they've at long last acknowledged that that reconfiguration hasn't worked. And, that they're going to do something about it.
And what about Alan Kelly's point there, as you might have heard on the news bulletin there, funding must be made available, obviously, to carry out these plans. But, what about this funding? What guarantees have we on that?
Look, Ireland is saying all the right things, but Bellin has to remember he was in power too when this thing was ignored. So I would say to the Allens of this world and the Michael Lowrys of this world, you have a great opportunity now to do the right thing. Let's get the funding for this. Let this get this over the line. Let's get this into planning. And let's move on with it, because the population in the Midwest has been let down for long enough. Let's get it over the line. Look, the next step would be the new 96-bed block, which is under construction in Limerick, and then some sort of a step-down facility, I would imagine, somewhere in Raheen Industrial Estates. And option 3 then, of course, is long-term. Look, I dread long-term projects in Ireland because they tend to fall off the shelf when the next government.
Yeah, because even the semantics around it, she said, she was speaking about option C, which is what you're talking about, recognising this as a much more of a medium-term solution. So it's the much more in there that would trouble me as well, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're saying at least there's an acknowledgement, but let's see this come to fruition, I suppose. Is that what you're saying to me?
Yeah. Look, I come here. You know what? When I heard it yesterday, I said, "Look, fair juice. This is an acknowledgement. It's a step forward, and I'm not going to give out about something when people acknowledge a wrong that has been done, and at least they have a plan now they've 3 plans to sort it out. So
right. But already this morning, I'm seeing politicians coming out and delivering this information as if that they played a part in it. What are you saying to me about this? Are you saying that this is down to people power, really?
It is, Fran. I mean, it's down to the thousands of people who walk the streets. It's down to the Aoife Johnsons of this world, Fran, that died unnecessarily. I mean, it's down to their families who despite grieving, had to go out and join campaigns to make sure it didn't happen to anyone else. It's down to those. I have seen, particularly politicians in Cllr, they were vicious against the campaign. Yeah. They tried to say there's no problem in UHL. I could if I Googled it tomorrow, I'd be able to come up with a list of politicians, particularly in Cllr, that poo-pooed or tried to rubbish the Midwest Health campaign, which were set up out of grief, and for politicians now to listen, as Conor Reidy said, the anatomy of a photograph. You saw, I never saw so many politicians trying to get into the one photograph as when they were opening the 96-bed block at UHL, but they weren't there the week after when there was 100 people on trolleys, and that's what we're dealing with.
And I'm just looking at what's coming into us here. People are very pessimistic about the government's ability to build a hospital, as in that option 3. When we see the delays, I suppose, around the children's hospital and the rows over the maternity hospital and all of that kind of thing, Seamie, there's a bit of pessimism out there, I have to say, if our listeners are reflecting the general thought around the county.
Well, I would say if we get option 1 and 2, we'd be lucky, Fran. And I can't see option 3 happening. And as I said, the option is to reopen Nina, St. John's and Ennis A&Es, because we have what are injury units at the moment, but they were built as A&Es. And you know, it just take away the bypass protocol, open the hospitals longer, the injury units longer. You know, the assessments units that are brought into the hospitals for the most part worked. So, you know, we still have the option of opening the 3 A&Es, but they won't do that because they'll have to really admit defeat if they did that.
Yeah, but you know, some of the thinking, though, really bewilders me at times. I know that area very well around Duradoyle there, but I'm not sure if you know that road is the main access road to the Father Russell Road from the Duradoyle complex. They put cycle lanes on both sides of that road. They totally narrowed the road for ambulances to go up and down. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous what they're doing, and very few people using these cycle lanes.
Smart travel, they call it. Smart travel. This is the Greens brought us this. There's an intention of narrowing roads, Fran, which is to get people off the roads, really. I mean, I see it myself in Nina here. The 780,000 euros that's spent on the 2 cycle lanes and the entrance to Nina from the Dublin Road. Nobody looked for it. Nobody asked for it. There's no bikers using it. In fact, a biker told me he'll never use it. But we spent massive amount of money on cycleways. Oh, listen, let's not go down that road.
All right. There's somebody wondering, because part of our conversation last time we spoke about the possibility of modular homes for workers in Nina. Somebody wondering, any update on that?
Yeah, I spoke to a housing official yesterday. You know, wondering could we do something for workers, man. You know, I mean, there's 200 social houses, or there's 260 social houses planned for Nina. Thanks be to God, we'll get them over the line. There's 60 being built at the moment. They're going to be delivered next year. That will put a fair. But we've done nothing for workers. I mean, and a modular housing company contacted me last week. Elite Modular Housing. They build steel modular houses. They're not cabins or anything. They're built from scratch. They can deliver a 2-bedroom furnished house for I think it's €49,000. They can deliver it in 90 days, built in 90 days and ready to go into in 90 days. They told me they have funding secured from England. I rang housing yesterday and they said, no, we haven't. That's not modern type of housing isn't part of the government plan at the moment, even though it was announced as part of the plan. And more or less, my idea was poo-pooed, but I'll continue with it. And I would say that anyone that has a site that services anywhere in Tipperary, I can put them in contact with this modular housing crew. They're more than willing to come in and build them. And they can provide houses within 90 days. And it's crazy that we have an idea like that, Fran, and the government, despite announcing it in their plan, haven't come up with policies on it yet. And another thing, Fran, my dad is living in Sue Ryder in Eland. There's a Sue Ryder in Holy Cross as well. He's 96 years of age. He's living in his own flat, independent living. Why aren't we building Sue Riders up and down the country? And they don't have to be Sue Riders, but retirement villages up and down the country, in every town and village. It's a great way of delivering safe houses for our elderly people, and then they can sell their own houses, and those houses will come back into the market. I can't understand why we haven't embraced retirement villages up and down the country.
All right, Seamie, thanks very much. Good morning to you. Thanks a lot. That's Councillor Seamie Morris speak to us there. 1800 938 007.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Social media influencers were paid more than €375,000 by state tourism bodies to promote Irish tourist destinations to domestic and overseas audiences this year. The taxpayer money was granted to online personalities for tourism promotion amid a 6.4% dip in the overall number of visitors to Irish shores this year compared with last year's. Now, the numbers were obtained by Social Democrats TD Aidan Farrelly through a Freedom of Information request, and he joins me now. Good morning to you, Aidan.
Good morning, you and your listeners.
Thanks very much for your time this morning. You've questions over the feasibility of the payments, and you're demanding that both tourism bodies offer evidence that the payments provide value for money. Do you suspect, Aidan, that this is not value for money?
I suppose the concern is when, and look, to begin, I think what we all see if we have an online presence, whether it's on any of the main social media platforms, is the predominance now of companies and bodies using influencers, content creators to sell their wares or to promote certain industries. And the state is now evidently no different to that, in that we've seen, certainly from Tourism Ireland and Fáilte Ireland's perspective, investing significant sums of money. The question that I put, I suppose, given as a member of the Public Accounts Committee, I want to make sure that where the state is spending such significant amounts of money, that there is value for that for the taxpayer. Like you say, amidst the context where we're actually seeing a dip, according to the CSO, in people coming, we had questions in terms of how Tourism Ireland and Fáilte Ireland make sure that what they are paying for is bang for their buck. And they've come back with more information that I'm certainly happy to share this morning in terms of how they evaluate that, how they judge that. But in the first instance, those figures was to see is there a trend upwards or downwards in the amount of money being spent in online advertising through content creators.
Yeah, maybe I'm just not across a lot of these influencers, but some of the names just don't ring a bell with me or bells with me at all. So how do they decide which influencers to use? Have you any idea about that, Aidan?
Yeah, and so they've come back to us telling us that there is an evidence-based process for this. And I suppose a couple of the key pieces that are relevant, certainly from my side of things, I would say the same as you. There are certainly names on that list that I don't recognise. But the key piece, obviously, is that when they're appealing to international markets, they would be content creators from different countries who would have a domestic audience in the UK or in the US or in Central Europe, for example. So it would be expected that we wouldn't necessarily know those names. So the audience relevance is one piece that the evidence from the Fáilte Ireland and Tourism Ireland that they use, but also then they try to evaluate content quality and authenticity. They have access to the performance metrics from these content creators, and then also the competitive rates within the sector, and then due diligence in terms of brand safety. And that's a lot of work if Tourism Ireland or Fáilte Ireland are to go back on the history of those content creators to make sure that their values and principles in terms of who they're partnering with align. So I think there's a way to go here on this. I think it's only going to become more predominant when you look, again, like my daughter, for example, she's 18 years of age. I think some of those names will be more recognisable to her than to me. But if we're going to use this, which I think is welcome, by the way, it's not just one way of advertising, whether that's on TV or local or national radio. They're also very, very important strategies for departments. But equally, if we're appealing to domestic markets.
Yeah, because those of us of a certain age, I think you're much younger than me, but I remember the big glossy promotions that the tourism board would do in America, for example, showing that sort of quiet man version of Ireland with the thatched cottages and Bunratty and all of that kind of thing, and the Rock of Cashel, needless to say, as well. Have they sort of gone away from that almost completely, and are we being portrayed as more of a modern sort of a country now? Is that what's happening out there?
Well, I think that and I know you and I have spoken before about the ways in which we consume our information, and there's a diversification of ways in which we do that. There's the mainstream media or the print, the usual audio-visual mechanisms. But as we know, so many of that generation, let's say 18 to 30, consume their media on their phones, whether that's on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. And so, probably rightly so, these bodies have reacted to that and would be keen to stress that it's one of their components of advertising. It's one of their ways of trying to attract people to come to Ireland as tourists. And again, for that reason, I say it's certainly welcome, but we can't go into it blindly. And as a member of Public Accounts Committee, that's my priority, is to make sure that if we're doing this, that there's a way in which, the likes of yourselves or the likes of TV companies can show very clearly, if you invest in us as a media opportunity, you'll get value for money. I'm not sure. I haven't seen clear mechanisms that content creators can do that universally. And I think, yes, we can look at reach, we can look at different statistics like that. But when CSO is telling us that numbers are falling while investments in content creators is increasing, it might be worth reevaluating and taking stock of this approach.
Now, of course, if I'm to be benign on this, I might say to you that, okay, a 6.4% dip, but maybe that dip would have been considerably more if they didn't invest in the influencers. So it's a kind of it's a tough one to debate, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I certainly am no expert and don't have the answers. But what I'm keen to see is if we're going to continue to invest in all elements of advertising, how are we getting value for money with that? And I think this is one of the key strands to that, just like they would evaluate advertisements on radio, advertisements on TV. We just had the revenue before us in the Public Accounts Committee recently, and I was asking about the whole idea of the 3.3 million tax bill that was put on content creators by revenue when they did an investigation between 2020 and 2025. It is a relatively new profession and occupation, and with that then often the ways in which revenue can deliver tax appraisals for people, like in terms of often it's not cash, often it's not money, often it's benefit in kind. How are we evaluating this? So I think as an occupation and a profession, and one now that we see the state investing in themselves directly, we just need to make sure that we do so in a way that's coordinated and consistent, because if we have certain influencers getting all the advertising budget and others who are brand new, like the arts, for example, we want to make sure that that's kind of developed equally amongst the community in there.
Your party, the Social Democrats, very much part of that coalition of the left that would have been greatly influential in helping Catherine Connolly to to be elected president. So I'm assuming that you had great interest in that Fianna Fail meeting last night about the whole Jim Gavin debacle. Can I ask you what you made of what you've been hearing so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first point to note is that I think it's been very well aired that from Catherine Connolly's perspective, I think what that showed is a really collective and purposeful campaign. She was out early and she had a very clear message, and that resonated with the voters, and I'm very proud to see her now in the Áras. I think the fallout for both other parties, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, is significant in terms of the way in which they ran their campaign. I'm here this morning at the launch of the early years and childcare action plan, which we've been waiting on for a year. So my focus has been on preparing for that. Fianna Fail has decided to publish its report and have its meeting, and I wish them well. They need to get through this process themselves, but there has been a significant fallout. I think we all are very aware of that. Will this report quell what appears to be significant frustration in their parliamentary party? I'm not around here long enough to know the answers to that. But really my main focus as spokesperson for children in our party is to make sure that we're focused on policy critique. I'm not going to weigh in too heavily on the parliamentary party affairs of Fine Gael or Fianna Fáil at this point.
All right. Aidan, thanks for your time this morning. Thank you. And happy Christmas if we don't talk before Christmas. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning to you. That's Deputy Aidan Farrelly there of the Social Democrats speaking to us this morning. 1800 938 007. Text WhatsApp 083 311 3311.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1-800-938-007.
I was talking to Conor Reidy and to Councillor Seamie Morris there about that announcement from the Health Minister yesterday about hospital capacity in the Midwest. One of our listeners saying the mistakes should certainly have been highlighted. Nothing would have been done. Only so many lives lost. Bricks and mortar won't save lives, it says here. I mean, the only reference that I can find really is about lives lost. And I guess she's referring to that when the Minister said, I'm fully aware of the pain and the concern that people of the Midwest have had in relation to the available healthcare services to them, which has to be the understatement of the year. But anyway, she went on to say, I want to assure them that as we progress, all three options, our absolute priority will be continuing to deliver inpatient acute beds on the Dúrdáil side, because we can see what a difference that is making. But as you know, Seamie Morris was disputing that to some extent anyway. All right, let's move on, because I'm delighted to be joined by Patrick from Thurles. Patrick, good morning to you.
Good morning, Fran. How are you?
I'm well, Patrick, and good to talk to you today. I hope you don't mind my giving away your age. I believe you're 80, Patrick, are you?
Yeah, 80 years, yeah.
Yeah, and tell me, you've concerns about the whole cost of living thing. You think prices have gone through the roof, Patrick?
Every time that you go down a town, things you got maybe a month ago could be gone up. There's nothing going down. Everything is going up. But the money that I have to live on is not going up.
And are you depending on a pension, Patrick?
Yeah. Depends on the pension. What I get a week, the TDs get it for the TDs are on 2,250 a week, not a month, a week.
Yeah.
That's 11,000 a week they're getting, a month they're getting, right? I don't know what that man is getting. He's getting 400,000 or something, and he's trying to go one place to the other like a butterfly all over the world.
And what are you living on, can I ask, Patrick? What is the pension now? What, about 260 or so, is it?
Sorry?
And what is the pension currently, Patrick? What is it, about 260, is it?
No, myself and my wife, we get 550.
Right, between you, so, right.
570. Yeah.
Right. So that's what you have to manage on with prices gone through the roof. I
have to get back the gas now this morning. It's 5 47 kg, €126 to deliver it. 126. So this time last year it was about €80.
My God, and everything else has gone up in parallel with that, hasn't it?
Everything is going up, nothing coming down. It's a scandal what these running the country expect people to live on, and they're ripping the country. That Martin can't wait to get out of the country. We're no sooner back when he's gone again.
Right, now he would say to you that he has to represent the country on the world stage and he has to be doing those sort of trips, Patrick. What do you say to that?
He's not living in the real world. He's living somewhere. He's going around the country, the world. He don't know where he is. He has to stay out now wherever he's going for a couple of days. He has to meet the soldiers out in some other country, wherever they are. He's peacekeeping. He can't come back. He has to go and meet them because he might be gone when he comes back.
And do you not think that it's important that we're represented overseas like that, Patrick, or do you think that matters?
I wouldn't think so.
Do you not think?
I give years overseas. There's a lot of people around the world don't know that this place exists. Never mind how we live.
Where did you spend time overseas?
I was in England and I was in France.
Were you? And did you work over in England?
I did, yeah.
What was that like to go over? What kind of work did you do over there, Patrick?
Oh, driving. I was driving trucks and all that. I can't come back to 1963 when I went away. Like,
what was it like to be Irish over there at that point and to go over and try and make a living?
I had no problem in England. I had no problem in England with English.
Yeah.
Or with anyone.
Yeah. You had no problem over there at all.
I had no problem. That doesn't say that other people wouldn't be thinking like me, but I hadn't any problem anyway.
Yeah. And were you working on the roads, on constructing the roads? Yeah.
Roads and maybe on building sites and all that.
Yeah. And what do you make of it all then? Do you think, I mean, are people like you, are you ignored? You've worked hard all of your life. Are you being ignored now that you find it hard to make ends meet? And
ignored? How could these TDs get that kind of money? 2,250 a week.
Yeah.
That's 11,000 a month. That's 11,000 a month for them going above that stall, so-called, and they're looking at one another.
But they would say to you, well, we're the legislators. We take all the responsibility of the running of the country on us. Maybe we deserve to be paid and looked after in that manner.
Look after? They don't know what it is to live. Frank. Yeah. They don't know what it is to live. And I'd like if somebody was here, if people got together and got these out. They're not fit to run. They're not fit to run that. Whatever they're arguing with one another above and up there. That's all they're doing, Did you support a political party throughout your life, Patrick? No, I wouldn't. I was even look at them. Never mind vote for them. I don't bother with them. You don't bother at all? No. I might vote, and I didn't vote. Right. And what about? Vote. And we're talking today about the presidential election because it's still in the news. I mean, did you vote in the presidential election? I did, and I voted for that. And I tell you, I voted for that woman that's in because she's no worse than the other crowd that's got in. So you voted for Catherine Connolly? Yeah, and Martin didn't know much about the man that he tried to get in. He didn't know much about anything about him. Jim Gavin. Only that he was the GA. He thought he'd be straight in. Yeah. You don't seem to have much time for poor old Micheál Martin, do you? Yeah, I wouldn't have any time for him. Not me, anyway. Right. Okay. And because and because you voted for Catherine Connolly, who would be seen to be left wing, I mean, would your politics be of the left? Do you think, Patrick? No, I haven't any politics. Have you not? Just vote for no, that's fine. That's fine. What about Christmas, Patrick? Are you looking forward to Christmas? Well, just Christmas. Just Christmas every week. Yeah. I any difference in it anyway.
Do you not?
No.
No. And, you know, the politicians who might be listening to us this morning, you're an 80-year-old man, you've worked hard all of your life, you're finding it hard to make ends meet along with your wife. What would you say to them this morning? What
would I say to them?
Yeah.
Fran, now, between myself and yourself, I was talking to you must be talking to the whole, I was talking to them.
Do you think?
Because they're good for nothing, the whole bloody lot of them.
God, you're very cynical about them, Patrick. You have no time for them at all, do you?
Yeah. You see, you don't see them only every 5 years. They're going to do this and they're going to do that. You don't see them then for next 5 years again. And they still do nothing.
And you know, the people that you would know, your friends and stuff, would that be the general thinking? Would our people...
anyone you meet, oh Jesus, what are we talking to them for? They're good for nothing. They do nothing, none of them. Only for the sons, like.
All right, well, Patrick, a happy Christmas to you and yours, and thanks for coming on with me this morning. I really appreciate it, Patrick. Thank you.
The same as yourself, and happy Christmas to yourself.
Thanks, Patrick. Thank you, and good morning to you. That's Patrick there. How do you feel about that? Are you a pensioner? Are you struggling on the state pension? I mean, we're told how well the country is doing economically and all of that, and we're all of this corporate tax and one thing and another. But are you out there? Are you struggling? Would you like to share with us? And if you'd like to speak to Leanne, it's 1800 938 007, or you can text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. Now, a lot coming. If we only mentioned it, we mentioned it in passing about the bicycle lanes, but a huge amount coming in about that. And I was making the point about that road. It's pretty near to the Doyle campus there for UHL. It's also the main track for an ambulance to get out onto the M18, the Limerick-Galway motorway. And honestly, they put a cycle lane on both sides of the road, so ambulances getting down there now, they don't even have the opportunity for cars to pull in and allow them to pass because the road is narrowed so much. I don't understand the thinking, but there you go. News and information's on the way.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat. Welcome back to the second hour of Tip Today. Barb was on. She says... Fran, listening to the news this morning regarding Micheál Martin and the results of the investigation done in-house regarding the presidential candidate, one member of Fianna Fail came out saying it is over now. And, well, I can assure you, for me, it's not over and will never be. From a failed politician and party in Micheál Martin and Fianna Fail because of their interference with the election, and I'm including Fine Gael in this as well. I was one of many thousands that spoilt my vote for the very first time in my voting life. They are despicable, a total disgrace. They've insulted the entire electoral process in Ireland. Micheál Martin, Simon Harris should step down as they are, well, it goes on to be insulting about them. But Barb, we hear your frustration, and thanks very much indeed for making contact with us today. 083 311 3311. Now, Imelda Keenen, originally from Mountmellick, County Laois, was 22 when she was last seen on Lombard Street in Waterford in 1994. She had moved to Waterford. She was living there with her boyfriend at the time, and despite extensive searches and decades of campaigning by her family, no trace of her has ever been found. Imelda's brother Gerry joins me now. Gerry, good morning to you.
Good morning, Fran, from a very wet and windy Waterford. Good morning to you and all your listeners.
Well, it's good to talk to you today. It's been a long road for you. It's been a long battle, Gerry. Would you just remind us of Imelda? Would you tell me a little bit about her?
I can just roll back the years there. When I came to Waterford first as a young boy back in the mid-70s, it's a place that I sort of fell in love with, and I worked in Waterford, and then I married and settled down. And during those years, Imelda was young, very young, and I brought her down to Waterford on a few occasions, and she always promised me that when she came to the end of her school term that she would definitely come to Waterford and live here, because she couldn't believe that we were so near the coastline, and the likes of Dunmore and Tramore, Ardmore, beautiful coastline here in Waterford, and she was mad about the place, and she could not wait to come down to Waterford. And that was her dream, actually, you know.
And
she was a very quite shy girl. When she did come down on a few occasions, she did say to me, I can't wait for school to be over. What about trying to get me into a school in Waterford for the last year? And I said, well, no problem, come down and we'll try and fix it up. And we did. And this is where she wanted to be, but unfortunately it wasn't to be, you know.
It wasn't to be, indeed. And what did she enjoy doing? What did she work at, for example, Gerry?
Well, funny enough, she was on a FOSS course at the time. FOSS was out in the industrial estate here in Waterford, and she was doing, as she told us at the time, she was doing a computer course, and we said, what is computers? You know, we hadn't a clue. I mean, we're going back over 30 years ago, and here we are today, surrounded with them. And this is what she wanted to do. Like, well, she was very interested in technology, you know.
So she moved to Waterford. She moved into an apartment there in the city with her boyfriend. Her disappearance then, Gerry, what can you tell us about that? How did you find out about it, for example?
Well, first, Fran, before we fast forward a little bit, she was living with me then for quite a while, for a year or two. And then, like every 17-year-old, you know, they meet someone and fall in love, and all of a sudden they're setting up home together. She moved in then with her boyfriend, and you know, we were very concerned that everything was okay with her, but it was like, and me again, like I was never looking over the fence at someone else's what was going on with their life, because I had young kids myself, like, you know.
Sure, And when did you hear that she had gone missing, and how did you hear that, Gerry?
Well, I had a brother here living in Waterford also, Ned, and unfortunately, poor old Ned, he died in 2011. He was only 51, and I got him a job with Irish Rail, and he was very friendly with Imelda, and went everywhere, even to go at the weekends and have a few drinks with her. But he rang Mount Mellick on the 4th of January, 1994, and it was the Gardaí actually in Waterford that rang my mother to ask them had she a daughter in Waterford called Gerry Keenen, and my mother said yeah. And then the Gardaí in Mount Mellick came out to sit down and tell my mother exactly what was happening, like, you know. So everything just
and what were they saying? What were they saying at the time? Just that she had gone missing. Was that the message they gave to your family, Gerry?
Well, she was, you know, her boyfriend didn't even report her missing. He asked my brother at the time, would he report her missing? And because coming from probably one of the family would seem to be more injured than someone else reporting her. But we couldn't believe what we were hearing, like, you know. Imelda going missing in Waterford. Waterford isn't that really big, like, you know, and Imelda doesn't really know Waterford, you know, so we thought it might be a lover's tiff, as anyone would think, and that Imelda would come back in 2 or 3 days, but that didn't happen either, Fran, you know.
Tell me about your relationship with the Gardaí around the investigation into her going missing. What was that like, Gerry?
Look, Fran, to be honest with you, I was only in my early 30s myself, so I knew exactly where Imelda lived. I knew Waterford very, very well. I knew where people go when they're courting. I done it myself. I used to go to Tramore, and I used to go down to the People's Park here, and I knew all the ins and outs of Waterford. I was very streetwise, actually. But when the investigating team came down, they went into Imelda's apartment, and they were back out in less than 5 minutes. And they told us that this everything's okay in the apartment. They didn't even forensic. We knew later on they didn't forensic the apartment, and that was the most hurtful thing that we ever endured. We told them that Imelda would never go missing, that this is more than a missing case. This is a murder case, and that's the way we looked at it for the last 32 years. And the Gardaí are still hammering the table and telling us that this is a missing case. This is not good enough for the Keenen family.
You've tried to get the case upgraded to a murder investigation. What difference would that make, even at this stage, do you think, Gerry?
Well, I'll tell you now, Fran, for the 30 years that Imelda had been missing, we had 2 meetings with her on Garda Síochána. The family had 2 meetings in Ballybricken here in Waterford. I thought that was absolutely degrading on any family who lived in Ireland all their lives. And to be treated something like that, even today when we asked for a meeting, and I'm not pointing my finger at any Garda individual. I think the system has completely let us down. We have asked for a meeting. If I ask for a meeting today, that meeting will not commence until maybe the middle of March. It could be May. And this is what we got for the last 30 years. We have asked them to bring this case to a murder case, and they said, look, I'll tell you what we'll do. And this is what they done last June. They had a review team in place. They had a criminal investigation team in Dublin. So these 2 teams got together sometime around June last year. And they told us to give us plenty of time on it. And they're going to find home Imelda's case from day one right up to the present day. Now, they came back to us in October, and they told us with a stroke of a pen that this was never going to be a murder case.
And did they give you reasons for that?
Well, they just told us, there was 7 or 8 guys sitting around the table. The Keenen family all came down from Lee's Offaly. We sat opposite them, waiting on the news to think that we were going to get this case. Like everybody, like a lot of girls here in Ireland, and I won't mention any names, and all their families have got over the line for a murder case. It mightn't mean much, Fran, to get over the line for a murder case, but the fact is, it seems that we're being left behind, and that's not good enough. We worked in Ireland, we paid our taxes here in Ireland, and we think that the system has completely, utterly let us down. It's a kick in the teeth to the Keenen family.
And of course, the murder investigation, that would give the Gardaí more investigative liberty, I suppose, around.
Yeah, it would. But the funny thing about it, any family that gets their loved one's case pushed over the line for a murder case, it comes to a standstill also. But at least we're on the ladder. We're on that ladder with everyone else. Now, I know, and I'm going to just mention one case, like Annie McCarrick.
Yes.
Annie McCarrick was a young girl that went missing in Ireland in March the 26th, 1993. She was an American girl, came from New York. Her dad visited Ireland about 5 or 6 years after Annie his daughter went missing. He had a meeting on Garda Síochána. He went back to New York. Unfortunately, John died in 2011. But his wife, Nancy, made a phone call to Dublin Castle. She was never in Ireland in her life. She probably doesn't even know where it is. She made a phone call to Dublin Castle, and with a stroke of a pen, Annie McCarrick's case was pushed up to a murder case. And I think that was a very, very insult to the Gardaí in Waterford to think that we were still left behind and hanging.
Do you think at this stage, obviously you're still looking for answers, but do you believe that there are people out there with information, for example?
I know in my heart and soul, and I've been campaigning for 32 years, Fran, there's 3 people here in Waterford, there's 2 to 3 people here in Waterford holding back vital information on the case of our sister Imelda.
Right.
And
Now, I know that you're not going to name anybody for me on that, but you believe that in your heart that there are people out there with information on this.
Yes. And in saying that, if I had these three people, and you gave me a gun and you said, shoot the person that you think, I wouldn't be able to. I don't know exactly who was the criminal in it, but I know that there is a lot of cover up, and I know in a lot of cases, and I go to a table of meetings during the year, not only the National Missing Persons in December, but I go to family support meetings throughout the year, and I help other families coming on stream that are only experience a month, maybe a year or 2 years into their journey, and I try to help them the best I can to let them know, that there is hope out there. Keep praying, and that's all the Keenen family can do, Fran, at this stage of time,
And Gerry, I guess you've lost members of your family since, and they passed away without knowing what happened.
Exactly, yeah. I have two brothers, as I mentioned, Ned there. Ned passed away in 2011. He was 51. And then I had my brother Donald, who was in the army for 40 years. And the likes of these people campaigned, and, like other members of the family, it takes like when someone goes missing in a family, it affects about 30 people, believe it or not. And now we're talking about family, friends, and we're talking about nieces and nephews, and all these people are affected in different ways. And I've seen my own mother, broken-hearted. I saw her going to her grave, and she prayed morning, noon and night that Imelda would come home at some stage. But apart from that, she was hoping that her body would be found, which was more important, and to give her a Christian burial in Mountmellick or in Waterford here with my brother.
So are you calling once again on the Gardaí to upgrade this to a murder investigation?
I am indeed, Fran, yeah. Actually, I'm crying out for help at this stage. When we walked out of the Garda barracks there, as I said to you at the last meeting, it was like as if someone got a knife and twisted in my heart, and to think that all the work that the family have done for the last 32 years has come to an aggressive end, that nothing has happened in 32 years, and now we're back where we started in 1994. But the pain that the family have endured in those 32 years is unbearable, and I wouldn't throw it on any other family. I don't care who it is or what they've done, but the pain that we have gone through in the 32 years is just unbearable.
And you have no doubt whatsoever that your sister Imelda was a victim of foul play, Gerry?
I'm 100%. 100%. It's just that at this stage in time, Fran, I'm not looking for justice. I'm looking for a body. If I only was told that her body was ditched somewhere in a shallow grave, and to bring her bones home and just bury her with my parents, I'm not asking much. It's up to the justice then to bring those people to justice. If I thought that one of the three people that I have very suspicious of, if one of them was out in hospital in Waterford today and they had terminal illness and they want to tell me a secret, I would be the first one out there and I'd kiss them on the forehead to tell them thanks very much for giving us that information, that it's never too late to come forward with any kind of news for the Keenen family.
Gerry, we wish you well, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us this morning. Thank you and good morning to you. That's Gerry Keenen there speaking to us about his sister Imelda Keenen, originally from Mountmellick, and when she was 22 she disappeared, and she was last seen on Lombard Street in Waterford back in 1994, as I say. 1800 938 007.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, puck on. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, with 2026 just around the corner, 2025 drawing to a close, as he does each year for us, my old friend Muiris Walsh has a look back on 2025, and he's with me in studio. Good morning to you, Muiris.
Morning, Fran.
Really, really good to see you today. This has become a tradition. How many years are you doing this?
I'm doing it about 12, I'd say.
Are you doing it 12 years? My God.
Yeah.
You kind of always break it down into sections as well, but let's start with, I suppose, the sporting one, but it's a very personal one for you as well, and that would be the loss of the great Philly Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone that knows me would know. I had my two first childhood friends were a fellow by the name of Robbie O'Brien in Barron Park in Clonmel. Robbie's out in Australia now. I was texting him this morning watching the Ashes, and Philly. And when my mum died, I went down to live with my aunt and uncle in Morton Street, which is in the centre of Clonmel, and Philly just lived around the corner. And we were in school together, but we became really, really close friends. And you know, I'd say this with all the love in the world. The first guy to ever punch me in the nose was Philly.
Was he?
Yeah, but the first guy of my own age or whatever to hug me was Philly.
Wow.
Right. And we shared great times, just the two of us playing out on the church path, William Street as it is now, in the school there, the Sisters of Charity. And it was obvious from an early age that Philly was the player. I was just the kind of the analyst, you know, if you want to say that. But he was a great friend, and as I texted you when he died, there will be better players than Philly that will play for Tipperary or will play soccer for Clonmel Town or whatever, but there won't be a better man. Philly was as loyal as they came, and he had your back. And even, you know, life goes in different ways, and we kind of lost track of each other, we'll say, but we always kind of met up and whatever. And the other ironic thing was that we shared the same birthday. I mean, I was a year older than him. Yeah. And Michael Fahey in Barron Park on the other side of me was a year older than me. So the three of us had the same birthday, but myself and Philly would always meet up for a cup of coffee and a sandwich around Halloween and have a chat.
When he passed away, we would have loved if you could have spoken to it, but you were so emotional about it, you couldn't even speak about it at the time.
Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, I just getting the text to say that he had gone, and I knew myself that I just would not be able to. It was too raw, it was too close, it was too personal. I'm not sitting here today saying that I was Philly Ryan's closest ever friend, or I was his greatest confidant or anything like that, but he was a close pal, and you know, as I call him there, the pal of my cradle days, you know. And I spent time in his house. I mean, his mother, Eileen, was just an absolute lady, you know. She was like something out of an Enid Blyton book. She was just, you know, she was just a wonderful woman. And then, you know, Philly would have played with my late brother-in-law, Hugh Daly, with commercials, but he'd be in the house because I lived with my aunt and uncle, so I didn't live with my brothers and sisters, so Philly be in my house morning, noon and night, and we just grew up together. He was a Leeds United fan, I was a Man United fan. There was always that crack and banter, and you know, and gangs us. I mean, we learned our trade as playing soccer down in the William Street car park, or Mary Street car park I should call it, and diving on concrete, and you know, we were just, and like, he was a crack jumfla and I was a crack jumfla, and you know, we different tastes and other things, but obviously for Anna and Amy and Katie and Shane, and there's only a week between Shane Ryan and my son Sean, so it kind of, things sort of, funny how life overlaps, but he was a great guy, and you know, I think, you know, grief is the price that we pay for love, Fran, you know.
It's a lovely way to put it in. You've dedicated, in fact, this look back to Philly, I know, today as well. You've headings and categories and also the gentleman. Will we start there first of all?
Yeah, Vivian Condon. Yeah, Vivian was from Clonmel, and he was... Again, I went to school with his son Barry, and one of my closest friends in Clonmel Town, very legendary footballers, Rémy Condon. But Vivian was their dad, and he was a definitive gentleman. I mean, anytime you met Vivian, he was a shy man. He was a Derby County fan. He loved his music, and you know, he was the type of man that he'd always stop and make time for you. He loved his grandchildren. You know, they loved him, and he was just a quintessential gentleman. He really, really was. I mean, I could never. You know, one of those people that you wonder, did they ever get into bad form? Of course they did.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But you know, but anytime I met Vivian, No matter what the circumstances were. If it was a day like today or a sunny day, he'd always stop and talk to you, or he'd give you the nod or whatever. He was just one of those people, honest to God, I mean that sincerely. And as I say, I often wonder, did he ever get into bad form, you know? It's
great to meet people like that, isn't it? The lady?
Yeah, Sinead O'Flaherty. Sinead died at 54. Her mum is my godmother, Noeline Johnson, Noeline O'Flaherty. And Sinead, she's taken far too young. She had a few health issues, but again, never heard her say a bad word about anyone. Really didn't. And she was just lovely to meet. Really was.
A recent passing, of course, the singer.
Colin Fennessy, yeah. And the greeting, How You Know, that was his one, you know. I mean, very, very, very sad year for the Fennessy family. I mean, both Colin's two brothers, George and Peter, died, and Colin's brother-in-law, John Root, died as well, you know, married to Geraldine Fennessy. I think Clonbell lost something.
Yeah,
and you
know,
he was
a great character, wasn't he?
He was a great entertainer. He was a great singer. He was a great character. He always had a smile on his face. He was kind of very jovial. He was very sort of, obviously, you know, he kind of brought that kind of character onto the stage, be it with Choral Society or the Theatre Guild. He was a part of my youth because of my dad being part of the St Mary's Choral Society. And you know, sometimes it's overused from him. We say somebody is irreplaceable, but it applies to Colm.
Yes.
Colm is irreplaceable, and that How You Know. I mean, if I walked up the town of Clonmel now and I said to people, How You Know, I think people would be offended because it was him. You know, that phrase, How You Know, that belonged to Colm, and that phrase is gone with him now. You know, but he was some entertainer. But the other thing as well is, Fran, and again, you know, I don't mean to patronise you. You know a good singer better than anybody, and he had a fine voice. And of course, it is, you know, his niece Gillian Fennessy and Andrea Root and his grandniece Saoirse Scully and Darren Scully. It has carried on.
It's great to see that.
Yeah, it's carried on, you know, and his memory will live on because of that. You know, and you know, it's sad when we lose people like Colm, as I say, but you know, he was a great entertainer. Yeah.
We lost many more in the world of politics. Then I suppose Martin Manzer, of course.
We spoke about him when he died.
The great peacemaker.
He was. I mean, look, I went back and read some of his memoirs. And some of his way of looking at life and looking at the peace deal, and his ability to say that, you know, in order to make peace with your enemy, you've got to sit down and talk to them and get inside their head and understand what they're thinking. And you know, I think his great thing was that, you know, you're going to have to adjust the furniture to accommodate people.
Yeah.
You know,
he was a pragmatist, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a pragmatist, and you know, and despite his sort of eccentric, if I can use that kind of demeanour, I interviewed him here on my kind of conversations programme, and when he needed to be tough and make a point, he made it.
Yeah,
and that was the sense I got. And I mean, look, a lot of our listeners thankfully don't remember those dark and dreary days. I was talking to my son about it. He was giving me a lift down to Cork and he was just asking me what was it like, and I just said I never thought I'd see peace on this island, relative peace, whatever you want to call it. And I said it was only for people like Martin Manzer and Alec Reid, you know, the other great Tipp redemptorist priest, who said one time when he was asked, is God everywhere? He said he is, but he spends most of his time in Tipperary. But I think we lost a great man in Martin Manzer, and he just was a peacemaker.
And then you mentioned Father Paddy Ryan as well.
Yeah. I mean, you know, two sides of the coin. I mean, Paddy Ryan wasn't a man that I had much time for, I have to say. I know I heard you're talking about Donald Trump and speaking ill of the dead, but you know, he was responsible for the death and of an awful lot of people. A lot of people would say would justify it, and they would say it was a conflict. But I mean, he was the most wanted man in Britain at one stage. I mean, I remember reading a book many years ago about the Thatcher government, and he was You know, he was up there, all, you know, the guns and the Semtex that he bought from Libya and that, and he was unapologetic about it. And I saw a documentary on him, and he was very unapologetic. Whereas I was watching a documentary recently about the Brighton bombing and the plot to kill Margaret Thatcher, and Danny Morrison, you know, not that he regretted it, but he said, look, the older you get, when I look back, you kind of wonder, was all this necessary? You think about the Bobby Sands and Francis Hughes.
Paddy Ryan never felt that, though.
He never felt that.
Totally unapologetic.
And that was one of the things that I would have had a problem with. But again, I mean, look, there are people out there who are entitled to feel that was just what he did was justifiable. And the only way I could mention him was to say he was an arms dealer, you know, which he was, and that's
your musical taste is coming up here as well, because we lost Richie Taylor, the great guitar player.
Look,
as well.
I mean, for anybody who doesn't know Richie Taylor, Richie Taylor was probably one of the most talented guitarists that I ever came across. And I would say this, and I said it to his brother Peter, actually, who's the musical director of Cllr. Richie Taylor didn't realise how good he was. He didn't. He could make a guitar walk around the room, and like a lot of people again in that you'd know, Fran, super talented, but there's a gap there, and they can't go through it. And I think, but the one thing,
and it's often, as you say, the most talented.
It's always the most talented fellas, you know what I mean? And there's a gap there, and you just have to go through it, and they won't. And I mean, the great Marcus Connaughton, the RTE producer, used to get his band Blueberry Jam down to Cork every year, and I met Marcus there about 2 or 3 years ago, and he asked me whatever happened to that band, and I said just they broke up. They were just a kind of a garage band or whatever. No, he said they weren't a garage band. He said they could have gone place, and he said, what was the name of the guitarist, the lead guitarist? And I said, Richie Taylor. He said he was some guitarist, and it was just, and I didn't realise he was sick. And when he died, I shed a tear. But Blueberry Jam, I believe, are getting back together again. They're going to have a concert, or they're going to have a gig in Baker's Bar. So I'm really looking forward to that, you know what I mean? But I just tell you, one of the idiosyncrasies of Richie, right? And he wouldn't mind saying, like, Richie, like myself, was a huge Rory Gallagher fan, and every gig he ever played, he wore the check shirt, you know, the Gallagher check shirt. But they played at a kind of a tribute night to Rory Gallagher. He wore an ordinary T-shirt.
Oh, wow.
Right, so that was his kind of idiosyncrasy. I think that's called an idiosyncrasy. And I must say, a gentleman, and never, ever, Fran, and you'd appreciate this as well, any musician would, never disrespected the music.
Right, and that's vital, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really vital. It is,
for sure. To some of the sporting heroes, then the immortal has to be Miko, hasn't it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, Miko Dwyer, we're all mortal now, as I said, or as a friend of mine texts me, you know, he said, we're all mortal now, Miko. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, in 100 years' time, when you and I are dead and gone, and our great grandchildren, he will become immortal. He will still be Miko. There will only be one Miko to do what he did with that Kerry football team. And I'll tell you a very quick story about him. I remember around they lost an All-Ireland semi-final in 1977 to that great Dublin team, and you know, and he was in Clonmel for doing a bit of coaching and that, and my father, he used to bring me into the Ormond Hotel now and again, and it's gone now. I think it's Deviate now, or some of those shops. But anyway, and Miko was in there, and my father, being a big sportsman, went up and said to me, he said, you know, you lost the All-Ireland 77 to Dublin, you know, the semi-final this year, will you win the All-Ireland next year? And Sean O'Driscoll, an old deceased friend of mine, was with us as well, and he said, I'm telling you now, lads, he said, not only will we win the All-Ireland this year, he said, but we're going to win a bucket full of them. And they did.
And they did.
Indeed, and the last team he managed was an under-13 team, you know, down in Waterville in some sort of C championship. You know, and he transcends the sport.
Yeah.
You know.
I think I told you he was lovely to me. I did an outside broadcast when I was with Midlands Radio up in Port Leash.
Yeah.
And the sales team came in and said, "Oh God, Miko Dwyer's outside. You have to talk to him." And I mean, as you know, I know nothing, less than nothing about sport.
Yeah.
He came in, and during the ad break, I said, I had to admit, I mean, he was just a pure dote. He said, "Don't you worry about it." He said, "I'll talk away to you."
Yeah, and I mean,
and that's what he did.
Yeah, he was lovely. He was lovely. I mean, I think himself and Micheál Murray-Hertig, who died in 2024. I think a bit of all of us died with Miko, including yourself. I mean, I think you do a disservice. You know a bit more about sport than you let on, but I think a little bit of all of us died with Micko.
Yeah. What do you mean by that? That was a generational thing? Was it the end of an era?
Yeah, it was the end of an era, yeah. And I mean, like, anybody of our age, you just say Micko. You don't...
You don't even have to say anything else.
No.
No. Brian Wilson. You have to mention Brian Wilson,
look,
of course.
I mean, I often wonder, sometimes I'm asked what's the greatest love song ever written, and I kind of always kind of say, well, there's Stardust, Rainy Night in Soho, something by George Harrison, but in any list you can't leave out God Only Knows. Yeah. And again, A Very Troubled Soul.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, you know, but some people have a love-hate relationship with him. Some people refer to him as a barbershop choir. I kind of get a bit annoyed.
No, that's referred to the harmonies, the lush harmonies.
Yeah. But Pet Sounds is just a wonderful album, and he influenced so many people. And there's about, you know, there's certain songs, and maybe you're the same, Fran, but if I heard them every day, I wouldn't turn them off.
I know, yeah.
And there's something about God Only Knows. I mean, you know,
it's just an amazing song.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And I remember I was back in the day when the iPods came out, and there was the little small iPods, and I got engraved on it for my wife. God only knows what I'd be without you, you know. And it's a fantastic line. But we lost the joint. And I mean, Paul McCartney has gone on record saying, you know, that's the one song he wished he had written.
Wow. What a compliment that is indeed. I just want to, before we go, I need to take a break. Eddie O'Grady, we have to mention Eddie O'Grady, of course.
I
mean, Tipperary hurling and horses. What a trainer. And they're renaming one of the races in Cheltenham after him, in the big Cheltenham Festival.
Indeed,
yeah, great horse racer, and horse trainer. You know, again, I wouldn't know a whole pile about horse racing, but again, a giant of the game now.
Yeah.
Giant of horse racing. Being no doubt about that. And I mean, even my son, who's 21, he rang to tell me that Eddie O'Grady had died. You know, it wasn't my older brother,
right? Okay,
who married a Killinall girl. It was my young son, 21. You know, and I think again, my generation, we lost something. And I think Eddie O'Grady, like Mouse Morris, who was fine and healthy, those lads will be spoken about in 50, 60. Their place in their sport is cemented for all time.
Let me take a break. We'll be back with more from Muiris in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puck On. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high roof vans, long wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Join the conversation in Tipperary. Contact us through Facebook, Twitter, or email tiptoday@tippfm.com.
You're very welcome back. And Muiris Walsh is with me, and we're looking back over 2020. Well, Muiris is looking back over 2025. We have to mention, just in case it gets forgotten, Paddy Cole. We have to mention Paddy Cole.
Yeah, the king of the swingers. You know, I knew two people from Monaghan. My late brother-in-law Hugh Daly, and obviously subsequently his family, and Paddy Cole. I was saying to you off air, an entertainer. Those guys went out with you.
Yeah.
And you know, when people went out for a night out to be entertained, and thankfully yourself and Muriel are still doing it, and it's very, very important. But I was saying, you know, the likes of Tweed and Loudest Whisper and all that, you know, all those great bands. But Paddy was kind of, you could imagine him being a comedian, a bit like Joe Mack down in Cork, you know, with the Dixies.
Oh, you're right, he was a great storyteller.
Yeah, he was. And fantastic musician, fantastic sax player. But those guys, as I said to you last year about Dickie Rock, and you do it as well, and you played in bands, those guys sang for their dinner. And the one thing they understood, they didn't disrespect the music, but they didn't respect the audience. And I heard Paddy Cole, I think he was on with Rodney Rice, would you believe, one morning, and he said, I'm working, but he said, when I look out, he said, the people out there, he said, are after working very, very hard, and they're on a night out. And my job is to entertain them. And like, he did send them home sweating, to give that old phrase. And those guys aren't there anymore, you know. And you know that when you went to see Paddy Cole, that he was giving it everything. He'd tell a story, he'd tell a joke. Like, he'd get stiff old Egypts like me up onto the floor dancing. Do you know what I mean? And you kind of felt, you didn't go away feeling cheated.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't feel.
But he wore his musicianship easily, if you know what I mean.
He did.
Because he was a class musician. Even if you left everything else aside, he was a very, very fine
absolutely.
musician, you know.
And again, I used that word. Like, I remember when I went into Cllr and I was a rubbish French horn player. My brother Rowan down in Kilkenny's a fantastic French horn player. And the only thing my brother Rowan ever said to me was, don't busk. Right, because we were playing classical music, whatever. And I always get the impression with those lads, with Paddy Cole, and that they didn't busk. Now, in the sense that, you know, obviously they would, in their own heads, they could arrange something or whatever.
Or they'd improvise.
Did it improvise?
Yeah.
Thank you, Fran.
Yeah.
But again, the music was very, very important. And I mean, he'll always be remembered, I suppose, as the king of the swingers, that tune. But even when he played that, whether it was in Kilmanahan, whether it was in, you know, the Olympia in Dublin, or if it was on the Late Late Show, no matter where you were, you got the same boom of it. You got the same sort of version of it, you know. And I was very sad when I heard he was gone, you know. I really did.
Yeah, I would not insist on having a photograph taken with very many people, but the last time I met Paddy in person was at the Sunday World Awards a few years ago, and I insisted on a photograph.
Absolutely. And, that's a treasure.
And it's a real treasure indeed. The broadcaster, David Hanley.
Yeah, I loved him. I did my leaving cert around 84, 85, and I remember Morning Ireland, and I get kind of annoyed sometimes when I hear people gushing over certain broadcasters. I don't include you in that now, Fran, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, sure.
I think the greatest broadcast this country ever produced was John Bowman. In my humble opinion, right? It's subjective, but David Hanley could ask the hardest question to the hardest guest. He wasn't afraid of it. Of course, brother of Mick, he was very, very well read, and he had a very, very distinctive voice, and you know, he woke up the nation in 1984 when Morning Ireland started. But what didn't get mentioned actually in all the was Hanley's People, which was a great show,
brilliant show,
and he had the one-on-ones, and I mean, you know, he was the first person I heard, you know, ask difficult questions of, you know, Rory O'Broderick and people like that, and then, you know, he could have someone, you know, like Nell McCafferty on, and he would, you know, and he wouldn't give a misogynist view of things, but he would kind of give an alternative view, and you always got the sense with him that, you know, is he asking this for himself, or is he asking this for me, or is he asking the question for his mother?
Yes.
You know, but that, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
he didn't shy.
He was fearless, all right.
Yeah, he was fearless, and he didn't shy away from it. And I'd say the gods in RTE were petrified of him. and that's the thing that I like about broadcasters. Yeah. Like yourself, he was never rude.
Yeah.
He might have been on the line, but like yourself, never rude, and would ask. I mean, you've done various interviews with me or conversations with me, and you know, you've kind of caught me a couple of, I don't say caught me, you know, not a gotcha, but you know, you've asked a very, very kind of straight and honest question, difficult question to answer, and you put it in such a way, and he was the same, and the voice, he said, was 45 years of drinking Guinness and smoking cigars, which I thought was brilliant.
It was a brilliant altogether.
Yeah.
Too. Dick Cheney, of course.
Yeah, the vice president. Again, people would look back on him. I mean, what we have over in the White House now, I mean, it makes George Bush and Dick Cheney look like Abraham Lincoln. Let's be honest. But I think Dick Cheney, he has blood in his hands over Iraq. I think that he was a political heavyweight. I mean, since I was in with you last year on the 29th of December, Jimmy Carter died.
Yeah.
Jimmy Carter's the last American president not to shoot one bullet, not to fire one bullet. And then we went, and when I think of him, and I think of Dick Cheney, and I think of the Iraq War, and I think of America's foreign policy, the only thing I would say in his defence was that they were only 9 months into the job, and it's 25 years the coming September when 9/11 happened. And I think, you know, their response was measured until they went into Iraq, and I think they lied about the arms or the
weapons of mass destruction. Yes.
And but again, I think that he was a very strong critic of Donald Trump, and again he held true to his own beliefs and his own values. And again, whether you agreed with that or not is up for it's up for debate. But he wasn't a man that I would have had huge time for.
Paddy Cooney.
The reason why I bring him up was that Paddy Cooney, a lot of people say, who's Paddy Cooney? Well, Paddy Cooney was the Minister for Justice in that Labour Fine Gael coalition between 73 and he introduced the Special Criminal Court and the Special Criminal Justice Act, and that led to the downfall of Cruel O'Dowd because Paddy Donegan, because Cruel O'Dowd referred it to, he wouldn't sign it into law, and he referred it to the Council of State, and Paddy Donegan called him a thundering disgrace.
Yeah.
I think there might have been another adjective in there, but anyway, and O'Dowd died. But now the debate is on about whether or not we should have the Special Criminal Court. So just put him in there because he died there.
Absolutely,
recently.
Indeed. There's so much more, and we're just about out of time. Do you let me allow you to pick then, because we have only a couple of minutes
just
left.
Before we go, the sport, obviously. I mean, like the second half display by Tipperary was immense when they won the All-Ireland at 3-14 to 0-2 in the second half. I don't think we'll ever see anything like it. I call him the Castellini supernova. I got that line from a friend of mine down in Kilkenny, John Sheehy, John and Noel McGrath. It's a play on words with the Oasis thing. I think, Oisin O'Donoghue from Cashel, a fellow Cashel man like yourself, that goal he got against Kilkenny, I mean, it was just a fantastic goal. I mean, the whole year was very sad for a lot of people, but that All-Ireland win, I mean, it was the 5th or 6th All-Ireland I've been alive for. Nothing will ever beat it. And I just want to correct one record, talking about John Sheehy. I was on with you the morning after, and you asked me when did I think that Tipp could do it, and I said to you, well, the first time I saw him against Laois in Templemore. I actually wasn't at that game, it was my mistake. It was John Sheehy actually said to me that they were looking very fit and very lean, and I was on to him again on Sunday or Monday, and he said the same thing about them in Fethard last Saturday evening against Limerick. So I just want to correct that. But it was record. But it was really, as I call it, the Phoenix from the Flames, Tipperary.
Of course. And Liam Call in there as well.
Sure. Look, I mean, what a man. And I mean, I couldn't go without mentioning the under 4 or the under 20s going down to Kilkenny, win right in the lines, then winning the James Nolan Cup, which is Kilkenny man, and again beating them with only 14 men,
Yeah. What the elderly man, Muiris Walsh?
Yeah, I just had to throw myself in there.
Is that because you feel particularly?
No. What happened was I wrote a letter to the Nationalist about
of course,
the leaving cert, and telling people that, look, if you fail or if it doesn't go right for you, the people who love you will always love you. And the Nationalists referred to me as they said, elderly man pens letter to people.
That's right. I love it.
Because I just even this, like, the only two things that I'm certain of in life is that one is that when I die, the people who are left behind will love me and will miss me. And the second thing is, and I say this, even my own daughter, she's doing exams in college this morning. I hope she's not listening. But what I would say to anybody, look, if you fail, and be prepared to fail and have a go and fail, the one certainty is the people that love you, they'll never stop loving you. So don't be afraid of
loads of people are adding to the list. Don't forget Sean Rocks, Fran, and of course
I had him in there. He's in there.
What a marvellous.
And I just want to say, Fran, I say this every year, well done to yourself and to Leanne and all the team here for a great show every year. And you do the state of Tipperary a great service. And I think one thing we forget is that there are people out there, be they in Tipperary or Cllr or wherever, they feel isolated, they feel they don't have a voice, and you allow them that space to talk and to have that voice, and it's what you're doing is a real public service, and don't stop doing what you're doing. I know at times it's very hard to 3 hours a day for 5 days of the week, but it's very, and happy Christmas to you all.
That's very kind of you, and many happy returns to you and to your family as well. Thanks very much indeed, Muiris. We didn't even sort of touch on half the stuff.
It's on my Facebook page, the whole list.
All right, Muiris, thanks. Gurmina Mahagut. News and information's on the way.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24111.
Thanks, Pat. Welcome back to the final hour of Tipp Today. Now, Tom Hennessy is a regular contributor to the show, and he'd normally speak to me about Republican issues, whether it's commemorations or historical stuff or that kind of thing. But anyway, Tom was on to Leanne because he's very angry with Muiris Walsh, because in the course of our conversation looking back at the year, we spoke about Father Paddy Ryan passing away. And Tom says Paddy Ryan, a hero of Ireland, and has joined a long list of Irish patriots who took a stand against the illegal occupation of the country. And he goes on to say, shame on Muiris talking about a Tipperary hero. Over 2,000 attended his funeral, and people know who our real heroes are, says Tom Hennessy. Well, now, the one thing I'd say to you about that, Tom, is what Muiris had was an opinion. It was his opinion, and you often come on this show and you would share your opinion, and we would give you the platform to do so, and we would applaud the fact that you are expressing your opinion. That's what Muiris did. That's his opinion. It mightn't be in agreement with yours, but there you go. 083 311 3311. Kind of a random one from one of our listeners to say, Fran, what's your favourite Christmas song? Do you know, I don't know really. I don't like most of them. I have to admit, and it's only because we've been hearing them time and time again over the years, I suppose. There's a particular song I like, it's sort of a Christmas song, I suppose. It's a kind of a Christmassy folk song. The great Joni Mitchell from the Blue album from 71. There's a song called River on it, which I think is just gorgeous and wonderful. But anyway, do you want to share your favourite Christmas songs with us? 083 311 3311. Now, Taoiseach Micheál Martin last night mounted a robust defence of his leadership at a rather tense meeting of the Fianna Fail parliamentary party, as fresh criticism emerged from TDs over the party's widely regarded failed presidential election campaign. Now, the internal unrest followed the publication of a long delayed review of the presidential campaign, which saw the former Dublin football manager Jim Gavin, who had been strongly backed by Mr Martin to be the Fianna Fail candidate, abandon his campaign after it emerged that he owed a former tenant more than €3,000. Well, to talk to me about this, I'm glad to be joined by regular contributor to the show and a member of Fianna Fail, Pat Mullally, is with me. Good morning to you, Pat.
Morning, Fran. How are you?
I'm well, Pat. When you and I spoke about this initially, you said you were disappointed with what went on with Jim Gavin, but that you'd give Micheál the benefit of the doubt until you saw a publication of the report into this. What do you think now?
You're taking me back for a crucifixion.
Not a bit of it, but what do you make of it now, Pat?
I was listening to last night, primetime last night.
Yeah.
And I saw that Barry Andrews was rolled out and Norma Foley was rolled out to defend what was happening inside in the parliamentary party meeting. And on hindsight now, looking at the Independent this morning, and it seems that some of the reports of the leaks that came out of that particular meeting, there is another person that's involved inside in this, and we have to be very cognizant of the fact is that there is a family involved as well, and that's Jim Gavin's family, right? Now, looking at the report that came out, that when he was asked 4 times, was there a problem? And he said, no, there's not a problem. And Micheál Martin only interviewed him once or something like that. I am not quite sure where in the hierarchy of Fianna Fail that the problem lands rather than on the Taoiseach himself. Now, the Taoiseach is culpable in the sense that this was his I wouldn't call it favourite candidate, but his candidate that he would prefer.
Yes, his preferred candidate. Yes.
Preferred candidate. Now, if you look at the other aspects of it, that it was going back to August, like there is a General Secretary in Fianna Fáil, Sean Dorgan. He was involved inside in this as well. Jack Chambers was involved in signing it. There was also that Micheál Martin's General Secretary or Chief of Staff or Chief of whatever it is.
Chief of Staff, yeah.
His own.
Yeah.
His own. Now, there is people around the Taoiseach and around the leader of the party they're appointed to look after the banana skins that are not around when he's walking and make sure that there's no slip in anything. And I think that the presidential election, which I voiced my opinion and I put it on Facebook, I was very, very disappointed in the way it was conducted. Now, at the time, there wasn't a process. Well, there was a process that was always followed, and that was that the parliamentary party selected the candidate. But going forward, I think that process is not right. For the simple reason is that you have the parliamentary party under a whip type of power that states that they should nearly favour what the Taoiseach has come forward with. Trust the man, in other words, or trust the leader of the party. Now, I think in a situation like going forward, I hope this is what comes out of the report, is that the process would be that the membership, the paid-up members of Fianna Fail, should be the people that would select the candidate through a special Ardèche or whatever the case may be, and that the candidates are put in front of them. Now, if that happened, that there was a special Ardèche and you had your 2 candidates or 3 candidates, it makes no difference. We'll just take, for example, Bertie Ahern was supposed to have voiced his opinion that he would have loved to have been nominated or would like to be selected.
Yeah, and whatever you might think of Bertie Ahern, he was treated rather poorly.
Rather poorly, I must say he was treated rather poorly. And we'll just take, for example, like if at the moment the buck stops with the Taoiseach, or we'll say Micheál Martin, the leader of Fianna Fail, we'll take the Taoiseach out, we'll take the government out of it. The buck stops with him. Now, if it turns out that if Bertie Ahern was willing to put his name forward after all the debacle that was around his tenure as leader of the party previously, and if he was intended going forward, right, that name is a name that they have there. If Jim Gavin was a preferred candidate by the Taoiseach or by Micheál Martin, that's another name that's there. And then the third name that came out of the hat was Billy Cllr below in Cork. Now,
Cynthia Niverico as well expressed interest in it. If she could get the backing of Micheál Martin, she said that she'd be interested in that. So she
yeah, but Cynthia Niverico now is we'll put it this way to you, she's a very, very good candidate. And at the moment she's doing a fantastic job in Europe. Now, okay, we'll just say, okay, we'll put it forward, there's 4 candidates inside there. A special Ardèche should be convened. Now, it might cost a few pounds to convene the EU, but it wouldn't come anywhere near the 400,000 that's out there being floated around at the moment at the cost of Fianna Fail to the party itself on the debacle of the presidential election.
So that's for the future, Pat. That's for the future. That's for the future. But what about the outcome of the report and the outcome of that meeting last night? Is Micheál Martin, is he still sound as leader, do you think? Is he?
Well, I know a lot of people would say that we shouldn't be washing our dirty linen in public. But the thing about it is, like, the report came out and it said that Micheál Martin was only aware of it once, that they asked Jim Gavin 4 times and on 4 occasions. He said no, there was no problem whatsoever. And then when it was pointed out that there was a tenant inside and the tenant was a journalist. Now, when the likes of the journalists contact a party and say that they have, they're asking questions about a candidate or a preferential candidate going forward, red lights should shine up.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, you know, it's grand to say that, Jim Gavin said, nothing to see here and that. But as you say, if people of the stature of Fianna Sheehan or whoever brought this up, would you not think that the due diligence then should be expanded in some sort of a fashion?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely would. No,
and you know, as Harry Truman said, the buck stops here. So the buck has to stop with Micheál Martin.
I said that the buck stops with Micheál Martin. Micheál Martin was the man that was put this candidate forward, right? And there was a lot of pressure put on the members of the parliamentary party to support that candidate. And it turns out of the 79 votes that were inside it, I think there's 29 that voted for Billy Cllr. Now, that wasn't an overwhelming majority supporting Jim Gavin, but he came out of that process. He came out of that process, and then was the candidate, and everyone was rowing around him. Now, it's very, very disappointing when it happened.
Right. Is Micheál Martin damaged by this? I mean, he may remain in place, but is he damaged by it, do you think?
I don't think. Look at. I'm wearing the Fianna Fail hat at the moment now.
I know.
Right? And that's what I would always and consistently be aware of, that we have to either support the president of the party, Micheál Martin, as the leader. But the thing about it is, there is a slight problem, I would imagine, that is his judgment. Would his judgment be questioned? That's what I would.
Are you questioning his judgment?
I'm questioning his judgment out of this debacle, really, because they should have went a little bit further. There should have been due diligence. But there's an awful lot of people around Micheál Martin. Now, I do know that in a situation like that, usually the president of the party or the leader of the party is kept out of the process. We'll just take, for example, if you're forming a government, a coalition in a government, the president of the party, the leader of the party, is not involved of either party, either Fine Gael or Fianna Fail.
In the negotiations, of course,
and
yes.
the negotiations go on, and they're all done behind closed doors, or whatever the case may be. And that's what kind of happens in a situation when you're putting forward a candidate.
Right,
now,
but Micheál Martin was very visible in terms of putting forward Jim Gavin. I mean, he was.
Well, we can't
there was
deny that.
There was no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt whatsoever in that.
There's no doubt that this is his preferred candidate. But if there was the problem as regards a bit of something in the background that's going to affect, because we all know that when a candidate puts their name on a piece of paper and say, right, that I am the candidate for such and such a thing, there is going to be an investigation back down to your communion money. And the thing about it is, this was a serious thing, and especially when it was a journalist. Now, in fairness to Niall Donald was the journalist that was involved in signing that was owed the €3,300.
Yeah.
They owed the money, and he didn't push it. He what he done was he just informed the party, and whoever he informed inside the party didn't bring that forward. You know. I'm sceptical about what happened.
So, and because I have to move on, Pat, can I just get from you, is it a case, though, lessons learned here and we move on now? Is that the way it is?
Yes, I think so. I think so, yes, because the simple reason is that anybody else that's inside in the party, who's going to go for leader at the moment? Like, we have a lot of things ahead of us.
Well, Jim O'Callaghan is very visible since he took over the Justice portfolio.
Give Micheál Martin a chance after this. I know we've given him a chance before, or whatever the case may be, but we have a lot of things going to come down the line as regards we have to look across the water to America. And there's a lot of crap happening over in Ukraine and Russia.
And just finally, the deputy leader, who might have been viewed as leader in waiting, Jack Chambers, is he really damaged by this, do you think?
He's damaged. He's damaged. I would definitely say Jack Chambers is damaged, because looking at the report, or between the lines inside the report, he knew about it as well. He knew about it, and he knew a lot more. That I would imagine that why didn't he press that information onto Micheál Martin? I don't know. There's something that's not right inside there in the top echelons of Fianna Fail, and I'd be worried about it.
Right, you know? and as you're saying that as a member of the party, Pat? I'm
saying that as a member of the party. Right. I was annoyed when it came out first, when this debacle happened. I was actually shocked to the core. And I wrote an article about it on Facebook, and I was shocked. And I was speaking as a member of Fianna Fail and as a traditionalist within the party. And I was shocked. And it should never have happened, and it should never happen again.
All right, I must leave it there. But Pat, Garmila Mahagan, and happy Christmas if we're not talking in the meantime, Pat. Thanks very much, Neil. Thank you, and bye-bye to you now. That's Pat Mullally speaking to us there. Let's take a break.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long-wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Tip today. Keep those calls coming into us, 1800 938 007. And of course, the text and WhatsApp is 083 311 3311. Now, First Class Rebel is the new project from Irish musician Ian Burke. And Ian is living amongst us here. He lives in Holy Cross, but he's a Cork man, and we'll try and not let that influence anything. But he's with me in studio. Good morning to you, Ian. How are you?
Good morning, Fran, and thanks for having me. Really great to be here.
Well, it's lovely to have you here because I'm rather intrigued by your music. But how did you end up in Holy Cross to begin with?
Pretty simple story. A collision of two people and two worlds. My wife is from Holy Cross, Tipperary, and I'm from Cork. So we moved here 6 years ago and settled there and just love it there. Love the community, the people, the countryside. It just suits me perfectly. Peace, quiet and
bit of slagging over the hurling, I would imagine, every now and again, is there?
I have no idea what you're talking about. Look, I can enjoy the success from afar with an NBSI, but it's been a drought in Cork. It's gone on 21 years now, but it's nice to see a young Tip team doing well, so I can take some solace from that.
Tell me about the music and tell me about the project itself. I mean, do you hate being pigeonholed in some way? The music is very atmospheric to me, but how would you describe it?
I think that's quite apt. Atmospheric is what I go for. It's kind of a wall of sound of lots of guitar, reverb, built kind of a Phil Spector-esque, if you like. It's kind of almost movie soundtrack. I do it myself. I play all the instruments, bar the drums, and I just love that sort of dreamy, psych, shoegaze type of sound, and it's always appealed to me. So I'm happy to be kind of pigeonholed in the psych shoegaze sort of genre. It's right up my street.
We're going to give people a listen to the current recording in just a few moments' time. But the music background would be what? I mean, did you play in rock bands growing up? Did you?
Over the years, I played in some bands. Kind of part time. Some serious, some not so serious, and I suppose when COVID hit, all of that kind of stuff stopped, and I found myself in Holy Cross with nothing to do at night, only guitar, and I just started messing around. For me, songwriting is almost like going fishing, where you sit at the side of a river and you cast your line, and you might get a nibble within 5 minutes, or it might be 5 hours, or you might have to come back the next day. And some ideas came, and I put them down roughly on my phone and then on the laptop, and I said, you know what, even for myself, I might just go and get these recorded, and suddenly there's a kind of a body of work built up, and my first single was released last month, so it's been very well received.
Very good. And with a view to what? An album possibly?
Absolutely, yeah, with an album. I think the plans for next year would be the single number 2 will be coming out in the first week of February. About this week I should have finished the video for it, which a lot of it was shot in and around Holy Cross and Tipperary, so that's taking in the advantages of the area. But yeah, it will be a full album, probably early 27. It's just a case of getting back in the studio and finishing the ideas that are kind of running around in my head.
I'm looking at the list of inspiration and the bands you would have listened to. It's sort of would it be indie stuff mostly? Would that?
Yeah, it would be, and just
Britpop as well.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, you look at the likes of Oasis, Jesus and Mary Chain, for example. Oasis would have hit me hard when they first came out. A young man looking for inspiration, like big guitar sound, and always a very positive message. You know, you hear the stuff of like Live Forever, you know, it couldn't be a more positive message, and that's always stuck with me. And yeah, that would be a big inspiration for me, definitely.
Right. Let's have a listen to Shadows Fade then. Introduce this for me. Let's make you a DJ as well as everything else. Ian, how would you introduce it?
So this is the debut single from First Class Rebel. It's called Shadows Fade. Take it away.
Shadows Fade from Ian Burke, living in Holy Cross. First Class Rebel is the project. It's there's a simplicity to it as well as that big sort of wall of sound.
Yeah, it is really, the foundation is so simple, and that's what I like. You know, I just want to keep it simple, but I just layer guitar upon guitar upon guitar to create the kind of a wave like symphony crashing on top of you, you know, dreamy, trippy. That's what appeals to me, to my ears anyway, and I hope other people get to kind of experience that joy that I get as well.
Well, I'm sure they will indeed, because the reviews have been very good, haven't they?
I've been really delighted with the reviews that have come in. Like RT have given me good reviews, Hot Press, a lot of online music magazines, and even just people messaging me on Instagram, just saying, I like your sound that you make. It's really, really cool. I've been just blown away.
I was saying to you off here, there's a visual element to it as well, but that's played out in the video for the sound. But I mean, I can see stuff with it. You know that?
It's kind of cinematic in a way. Yeah, but the video is it kind of lends itself. The sound lends itself to this kind of wavy, trippy, almost psychedelic sort of visuals with lots of colours going on, and like, people can watch the video for it. It's on YouTube under First Class Rebel. That's FIRST Class Rebel, and it's clips of the video are on my Instagram as well, First Class Rebel. So like, yeah, people.
Very good. And the music is available online as well.
It's everywhere. It's on Apple, Spotify, Bandcamp would be a great place to get it. Anywhere you get your music, it's there.
Very good indeed. So will there be a band at some point or other that you can perform?
There will be live performances. There certainly will. I have single number 2 coming out at the start of February, an album to come out, but live stuff will be happening. It's a case of recruiting the right people to get that done.
Okay, well, there'll be a queue up now. There'll be a queue of the right people wanting to take part in the project like that.
I'll welcome all viewers.
Right. Well, look, many congratulations to you, Ian, and happy Christmas to you as well. Are you spending Christmas in Holy Cross?
In Holy Cross, yeah. I've all the food ordered. The cooking will be done by ourselves, and we'll have my sister-in-law and her family from Dublin coming down. So as per usual, it's a tradition. We're looking forward to it, and
very good. Yeah,
we'll eat, drink, and be merry.
And you're cool in the kitchen, I believe, as well as the.
I must say, I'm fond of eating good food. Like, and I couldn't be in a better place in the middle of the Golden Vale with all the great produce we have here. So it suits me good.
Excellent. Well, look, I was looking forward to meeting you. We look forward to meeting you in the future as well. Thanks very much indeed.
Fran, thanks very much. Happy Christmas to you and all your listeners. I appreciate it.
Many happy returns to you. We'll take a break. We're back with more in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1-800-938-007.
Now, a little bit of housekeeping. Due to essential maintenance, there may be some slight disruption to our transmission signal in South Tipperary from about 12 noon today until 2 o'clock. So if that is the case, apologies about that. Years ago in RTE, they'd say it's Dunalin on Bristol Show, which sort of covered a multitude. I'm delighted to be joined in the studio now by John G. O'Dwyer, and we continue with the story of Ireland, I suppose, and this is the second slot. John, how are you?
I'm delighted. Great to be back again.
Good to see you. St. Patrick, John. We're going to talk about St. Patrick today.
Well, I suppose he's not really the avuncular figure we think about. So if we're going to start shooting sacred cows, we can say one thing for certain. St. Patrick did not bring Christianity to Ireland. He was not the first person. The reason is the Pope sent in a fella in 431 called Palladius, and Palladius's job was, he could convert people to Christianity, fine, but his main job was to administer to the existing Christians in Ireland. So that tells us there were Christians in Ireland in 431. Patrick didn't come until 432. We know that for definite. There's also a possibility, for example, if we go down to Waterford, the people down there would say St. Declan would have preceded for Patrick as well in Ireland. Ireland, there would have been St. Kieran of Sagar and that. And that's not surprising, because remember, Christianity, the Roman Empire had legalized Christianity 120 years earlier, and it was the official and only religion of the Roman Empire 50 years before St. Patrick came here. We were trading with the Roman Empire, so the idea that Patrick was the first Christian or brought this completely new idea into Ireland, that's preposterous. He didn't bring Christianity into Ireland. Among others, he probably had a huge influence, particularly in the northern half of the country. We have his own writings when he came into Ireland, but it's nothing like the avuncular figure. In other words, Patrick's own writings are exactly what you'd expect of a disruptor coming in. Remember, at that stage, the real power was held by the Druids, and they controlled religion, they controlled everything else within society, the legal system, the whole lot. They wouldn't have liked Patrick coming in. And his own words, which is, Patrick says that he was beaten, put in chains and imprisoned and tried as well as that in his time in Ireland. The amazing thing at all in what he...
Sorry, now, was that his first time in Ireland?
Second time in Ireland. When he came back,
yes.
In fact, he landed at Wicklow, and he admits that the local people wouldn't let him land. So he went further up to Saul, and therefore, there was a local chieftain there who welcomed him. Maybe he knew about Christianity already. It was a very, very difficult mission for Patrick. And I suppose the one thing you would say, the one thing is that he actually came in as such a disruptor, and he survived. Now, the one thing may be that there were Christians in Ireland already, so people were aware of it. So that may have, as I say, softened up the playing pitch for him a little bit. People at least knew what he was talking about.
But what we learned in school, he was a slave here at one stage, was he?
Yes, he says that in his own writings. He says that in his own, so we have to take that, that's what...
Right, and then he went back, was it to Wales?
He went back, and nobody knows where exactly he was born, somewhere in Britain. The historians are fighting over it. Was it up in Northumbria? Was it in Wales? But in some way he was British, and then he went on, studied in the Catholic Church, became a bishop, and then in a dream he had the Irish people signalling him to come back to Ireland as a missionary, and he responded to that. That's what he says in his own writing.
Okay. Well, what comes from the writing? I mean, in terms of his character and the kind of person he was, like, was he tough? Was he...
I'd say what comes across, I think, is that he was like you and me, full of insecurities, struggling to make sense of life, and a very humble person. Very humble, seeing himself as God's servant, that kind of thing, but finding it very difficult to fulfill his mission as well. So this whole idea that we have built up, that everything was hunky-dory, and he came in and he drove the snakes out of Ireland. There were no snakes in Ireland ever.
So that was a metaphor of some sort?
Yes, it's a metaphor, they say, for, it is said, I imagine everything is a metaphor. It's the idea of driving evil out of Ireland. Okay. That's exactly it. But that he went around and all the kids came out to meet him. Like, there was no towns in Ireland. There was maybe 1,500 small settlements around the country. Travelling from one to the other would have been dangerous. You would have wolves roaming around the place. You could be attacked. So it was a very, very difficult mission. And, after a good lot of rain like we've had now, how do you cross the River Shannon safely if you get to the River Shannon? All those problems are not, you just see him come in a lovely sunny day, and that, not the way it was.
Right, but he was very effective.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, I think the point about it is the Christian message is an extremely effective one, and we talked about that. It had a huge selling point, and this was the idea of the hereafter, where we would meet loved ones in heaven. Now, in the past, the pagans had maybe some idea that people would in some way come back and be reincarnated as somebody else. This kind of thing, maybe some spirit, some idea of your spirit staying on. But this idea of the whole person, that you would meet a loved one when you were back up in heaven. It's such a powerful message. He had that powerful message in behind him. But the other thing you would remember, if he was 6 years in Ireland, he also spoke Irish. So that would have been, whereas poor old Palladius only lasted here a year, probably spoke Latin, couldn't communicate with the local people. You have to think of all the practicalities as well.
The Shamrock.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, I wouldn't say there's no evidence, no historical evidence whatsoever for that either.
Are you serious?
None at all, yeah.
The symbol of the Trinity.
It's a very bad example anyway. It's a very bad metaphor, because the three people are part of the shamrock, but the idea of God is that each leaf would be God whole. Each one of them is fully God himself. Each leaf is only part of the shamrock. So the idea is that everybody is fully and entirely God, fully entirely the shamrock. So all of those things were built up. But remember, what happened later on
were they imposed later on onto the myths?
They would have been, yes,
Patrick?
mostly. I mean,
okay.
We have no evidence, there's no evidence whatsoever to believe any of those things. They were imposed later on because Armagh became very powerful in the church. And the whole idea was to promote Patrick, the first Bishop of Armagh, as the entire 100% founder of the Irish Church. Therefore then, because he set up his seat in Armagh, you couldn't say, no, I don't think it's a good idea. Armagh is kind of a small place. Really, it's the Bishop of Dublin or indeed the Bishop of Cork or wherever. So they were promoting themselves. The Northern Church became very... So you can see the reason why they would have wanted to do that. And all these then are what you call hagiologies, where these people are built up. They're not a bit like you and me. They have no human frailties whatsoever. And of course, nobody can be like that.
Tipperary angle on this then?
Well, comes the Rock of Cashel, of course, and coming to Angus. Again, that's the whole idea that the most powerful person saw the Christian message. Therefore, the Christian message is so absolutely powerful. But if we talk about it then, it's more important than what happened. It's the legacy that Patrick left behind him. That's the main thing. And the first thing that came in here was monasticism. And Ireland became a uniquely monastic country with monasteries everywhere in the way Europe didn't. And so you have the founding of places like Clonmacnoise, Glendalough, St. Finbar down in Gugan Barra, Clonard in County Meath, Bangor up in the north near where St. Patrick had his ministry, and people went out there. And the important thing was then that the thing is, we have to think of Ireland as now not very stable, but a relative place of stability, whereas the rest of Europe is what's called the Dark Ages, when the Huns and the Vandals were coming in, the Roman Empire was breaking up, so all the old certainties were breaking down. And so once Christianity came to Ireland, then a lot of missionaries felt they should bring back Christianity. Now, the important thing to remember is the idea Christianity did not die out on the continent when the Huns and the Vandals came in. It was in one place, it wouldn't be in another. There would have been, wars and that kind of thing. But it's very unstable. But you got then the likes of Columba, who went up to Iona, Columbanus, who went the whole way down to Bobbio in Italy. But again, you get the hagiologies. And the point is, when he went to France, he wasn't welcomed because there was a local bishop there who didn't like the whole idea. So that's why he went to Italy, because he got kicked out of there. St. Kilian got his head chopped off in Würzburg. So, it's not as simple to bring in messages like that. The things that are happening in the world today, the same impulses were there among people back then. So, but what you had in Ireland then, you had all these people going out, St. Brendan as well going out, and they were all in St. Aidan over to Lindisfarne. You had an enormous number of people. But with relative stability in Ireland, see, to be creative, if you want to be creative, you can't really be creative if you're worried, will you be alive tomorrow? Will you have a dinner tomorrow? But Ireland was relatively stable compared with Europe, and so it allowed a great flourishing of Christianity. So that's where we get back then. The great artefacts, the Arda chalice, the Tarda brooch, the Cross of Cong, and of course the one here, you want the Tipperary angle, the Derry na Flan chalice. Nothing remotely like that was produced at the time anywhere in Europe. And because these people had support in the community, and because the monasteries were seen as a sanctuary, so even though the Irish were often warring, they would not attack the monasteries. They were seen as Christian, and of course that was all then to be rudely interrupted pretty quickly. But those are the big things. And then of course you had the writing as well, the Book of Kells, the Book of Dodder, all this great flowering, and it's very, nothing like that could have happened in Europe. So I always think the Irish are a very creative race, and I think that creativity was there. And why were the Irish poor then? I think they didn't fit into structured environments as well, like with the Industrial Revolution when you were on an assembly line. But when it came to creating, and then it came back to IT again, that's all about creativity as well.
Interesting. And when you say this was all interrupted, are you talking about the Vikings then?
Yes, the Vikings came in. So there was this beautiful thing then, and the Vikings came in, and they were seen as barbarians. And the main reason they were seen as barbarians was that they were attacking the monasteries, and monasteries were seen as sanctuaries. So they came in. So what would happen is, it would only happen in summer. They'd only travel, obviously, in summer. These lads would arrive in and they would attack the monasteries. They were the only things worth attacking in Ireland. Remember, there was no cities and there was only scattered farmsteads. So they started attacking the monasteries. pick the low-hanging fruit first, Lambay Island, Rathlin Island and so forth. Then, as we'd say down in Tipperary, getting a bit bolder. So they go up as far as Limerick, they go up the rivers. And eventually then, and then they go back with their loot to Norway.
Well, in the meantime, the monks, they were hiding their precious stuff as well, weren't they?
Possibly while they're in a flan chalice possibly there was Vikings, because probably it's quite unlikely that the Irish would see sanctuary. So even though they were attacking each other, they probably wouldn't have attacked the monastery. Yes. So it's very so they were trying to hide. Of course, from the terror of the Norsemen, that was a prayer, may the Lord deliver us. But again, eventually you've all the monasteries are sacked. So what are you going to do now? I mean, okay, and what is that? It's kind of a long journey, dangerous journey back to Norway. What about kind of spending the winter here?
Yeah.
So they started to settle down, and they began then to spend time here.
They started to build.
Yeah, and they started to build.
Yeah.
So they created trading posts. They created those at the mouth of the great rivers. So you have Dublin, you have Wexford, you have Waterford, you have Cork, you have Limerick. They were all created. Now, not a lot of those cities remain. That's why we don't know as much about the Vikings, because they were all wooden. They built of wood. Whereas you go back 3,000 years before that to the Stone Age, you have something built of stone, which of course will last, like Newgrange. So they began to trade, and then after a while you settle down, you get to know the local people, you start to like them, maybe you start to fall in love with them.
Sure.
They begin to intermarry. And then they begin to become Christian. And everybody's better off, because now they're trading. They are great traders. So everything begins to settle down. And, it's going along reasonably well then, until then a fellow called Brian Boru comes along.
And tell us about Brian Boru.
Brian Boru, yeah. Well, the first thing is, I presume you were taught in school that the Brian Boru went up to Dublin. At the Battle of Cllr, he drove the Vikings out of Ireland, and he became High King of Ireland. He didn't. After the battle, the Vikings went back into Dublin. Brian didn't go home because he was dead. In fact, not only would I say that he didn't drive the Vikings out, it could be argued that he actually lost the battle, because he died, his son died, and his grandson died, and they were the heirs apparent, with the result that Mael Seachtain O'Neill was able to usurp the High Kingship of Ireland in the power vacuum. So the O'Briens lost the High Kingship of Ireland there. They didn't drive the Vikings out of Ireland. In fact, the nearest thing I'd say modern historians would say is that the Battle of Clontarf was a civil war. Brian was the High King of Ireland, was pushing people around, or that's what they felt. So the King of Leinster tied up with the Cedric Selkenbeard in Dublin, and they decided they would take on Brian's power. And that's what it led to. There were Vikings of Dublin were certainly on the side of the King of Leinster. But the Vikings in Waterford, Cork and Limerick were on the side of Brian. It was very much it was like the much later civil war, I think, between the Free State soldiers and the Republicans, who would be top dog in Ireland. And Brian won it, but then didn't survive to go on long enough. So
I'm just conscious of what we were taught. I mean, my understanding was that Brian Boru had won the battle, and was unfortunate in the aftermath of it, he was murdered.
Yeah, well, yes, the Vikings retreated back into Dublin, but then they just went on. So Brian was dead. Cedric Selkenbeard, his main adversary there, he continued on as the King of Dublin for another 22 years after that. So, like, all these outcomes aren't all as clear, and we still have lots of Vikings and Viking names around Ireland. The name Doyle is Dovegowl, which is because they were that's what the Vikings were referred to in Ireland. So a huge amount of heritage, and they kind of all absorbed into it. But in history, especially old history is messy, and some of the old historians try to put it's easier to sell a clear message. Patrick came into Ireland, converted all the Irish, did a whole lot himself. Brian Boru came up to Dublin, drove the Vikings out of Ireland. Unfortunately, he got killed there. But history is always more messy than that, and people have all kinds of relationships, all kinds of motivations.
We've been teaching it arseways then, because it's much more exciting and passionate with the way that you're portraying it. I mean,
the main thing, these are all real people with the same thing, so they're all trying to protect their own ground. So if you move this forward, it's the same motivation. I don't agree with it, but Israel's response in Gaza is because they were somebody attacked their ground, got in there into when their back was turned and killed lots of their people, and that's the result. That's the ferocious response from that you have there. But unfortunately, deep down within us all, there is that gene which must be kept controlled, and sometimes it's let free, and then the most horrendous things will happen in history. But everything kind of settled down, after that.
Right, so we're up as far as Brian Boru then.
Yeah.
Next time round, what are we going to do? Where are we going to take
what we're going to do then is I'm going to throw in another teaser here. You have this fellow Dermot McMurray.
Sure.
He's really evil.
Yeah.
So everybody we were taught in Ireland, he was the first guy to he went out and he invited the Normans into Ireland. I'm going to tell you it is true. But before that, a guy invited the Normans into Ireland well before Dermot McMurray, about 15 years before, and that was the Pope.
Wow.
He gave a laudability to Henry II, and he said, you can take over Ireland. And it was all, you see, it's the human thing again. It was really a dispute that the Celtic Church wasn't paying its dues properly to Rome, wasn't following the proper doctrine, and the Pope was very worried about that, and he wanted to change that around. So he gave a laudability to Henry. Now, Henry was fighting in France and everything else and never got around to it. So what actually happened then was, when Dermot McMurray went abroad, he looked for support from Henry, didn't get it, but a very ambitious lord called the Earl of Pembroke, Strongbow, came into Ireland, and suddenly Henry began to look out because he saw Strongbow as setting up his own kingdom in Ireland, and he was in like a flash of lightning to make sure that
it's fascinating. Who was the Pope? That wasn't Celestine, was it? No, no, that was earlier, wasn't it?
It was, no. Celestine was earlier. I just can't think of the Pope's name now.
Right. Okay. So next time round, it's fabulous stuff. In fact, from last time, we can't believe the amount of traction we're getting on in terms of people engaging with us over. So it's really, really good indeed. Pleasure as always. Thanks, John, and a happy Christmas to you and yours as well. Thank you. That's it for me. Leanne produced, Ali looks after content, Stephen has the time tunnel on the lunchtime show, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Please support